So one of the recommendations that I give schools often on how to find good chapel speakers is survey your students, figure out where they go to youth group, and invite their youth pastors. Youth pastors are just kind of overwhelmingly good at speaking to youth. We know they like their youth group. They go there, and I tend to find them as a little bit more engaging for the students than senior pastors and some other speakers, at least in many cases. Now, here's where the problem comes in. The objection I get when I throw that out there is, they have students that go to a wide variety of churches. And how do we know that we're going to align with that youth pastor theologically? So we can ask ourselves a couple questions. Number one, if we know where they're going to church and they're part of a denomination, or we can look at their website and figure out where their theological kind of premises lie and their statement of faith. Maybe we can get a lot of information. Maybe it's enough to kind of calm us down, but maybe it's something that okay, this is definitely different. All right, and how do we handle that? We certainly have to put it on a spectrum. I think there's certainly a big difference between someone that's going to a Catholic church or a Mormon church. I mean, these are huge differences than if we're talking about a church that's kind of evangelical Protestant. They're not really going to be as far away from each other as maybe, depending on how you think about them in your head. They're probably not that far apart. But I obviously each school kind of has certain tenets that they kind of hold to. I find in a lot of instances, schools maybe take a strong stance that they, don't believe that speaking in tongues is appropriate in the modern church setting. And they're certainly surrounded by lots of churches that are on the more charismatic spectrum. Or churches take a stance on something like they're premillennial. And they know that, whether it's a Presbyterian or Reformed church, that there could be, differences when it comes to eschatology. But when you can do that assessment on how different are they, and are we close enough in family that there would be certain topics or certain passages that we would just totally fine and comfortable with, I think that's your starting point. So what I do many times when I have a speaker I don't fully know, I was either recommended to them or even sometimes I was kind of told hey, get this person in, that I like to have those conversations that the first time they're going to speak here, I either want to hear what they're going to speak on, and then I'll connect with them about 2 weeks ahead of time, and when I start talking to them about what they're speaking about, and either topic or location in Scripture, then I can start sharing a little bit about our school so that they kind of know where we align theologically. I can kind of ask, does that fit in with what you believe and where you're at? I can even maybe warn, if you could maybe steer clear of that, that would be really, important for us. And really, very rarely have I had any issues in that area whatsoever. The other tactic I've tried is actually asking them to speak on something in particular, knowing, hey, I know we're on the same page and it comes to this area. Maybe I ask them, hey, we're going through a little series of, the miracles of Jesus. I'd love for you to, pick one of the miracles of Jesus and kind of talk about maybe the deeper implications of it. Or there's a topic we're talking about, forgiveness. And I'd love for you to kind of deal with some passages on Christ's forgiveness. And so now I know I'm putting them in a certain amount of boundary, and if I know, again, if I'm aware of where they kind of align theologically, I can keep them so that we are on the same page and we're in the same lane. The last thing I'll do for people that I'm just still a little more concerned, or I'm just not aware, or I don't have the opportunity to really kind of get some give and take for whatever reason, I'll kind of ask them to share more of a testimony. So I can think of in the last couple of years, I had our local sheriff who was a Christian, but again, I don't really know kind of where he's at. He's certainly a busy guy. I couldn't really talk to him a ton ahead of time. So I asked him to just share on kind of his testimony and how his faith has affected his policing his job. And did a great job. I know this semester I got our local area representative, our congressional representative for the area is coming speaking. He's Greek Orthodox. He's certainly different than we would be, on a theological spectrum. However, what I'm going to have him speak about is, his experiences in Congress. How should young people be involved politically? young Christians especially be involved politically, and maybe even talk about what are some things that we should be listening out for. What are the things on the horizon that you think that we as young Christians might care about? And so I'm having him share this kind of experience. I'm not expecting him to do a deep dive in anything in Scripture. And honestly, if he says something that we would massively kind of disagree with, one person saying something one time isn't, gonna cause chaos. It also makes it very easy. I can do a little follow-up. We can maybe say, hey, we view this a little differently. There have been instances that I needed to pop up there at the end, and I'll kind of make just like a little generic statement, not, re-preaching anything. But it's so rare, and it's so few and far between, and I really have not had a major issue on it, as long as you're kind of doing this work on the front end. So I think for the value of some diversity, for the value of if our students are saying this is someone they really enjoy, let's try to find how to make it work instead of just looking for immediate reasons why we would say no. Let's figure out, is there a certain avenue in which we would say yes? That's my recommendation. I'd love for you can watch some of my previous videos on my YouTube channel. You can go to my website, discipleshipineducation.com. See additional advices that I have to share on chapel. It's a constant conversation that we have here at Discipleship in Education, talking about the importance of chapel.